Welcome to Dodge City University. This is our first launch of this. This is going to be our online platform. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Our goal with this is just to provide an outlet for you guys to be able to continue escalating your game, right? Pushing your game, becoming more effective and efficient within your dodging, dialing in the movement, just like you would do for any other skill set within the game of lacrosse. So today, the actual objective, I want to give you guys tools that you can take right away and apply to your game. So after this session, which is going to be roughly right at an hour, maybe a little shorter, but we're going to go in and we're going to dive deep into a couple of our dodges. We're going to review our principles, right? So we have 3 principles that we live by here at Dodge City. From there, we're going to go into 2 movements or 2 dodges that most athletes fall in one of these 2 categories when it comes to dodging. It's a certain style of dodging, you're going to fall into one of those 2 categories. So we're going to cover both. After we do that, we're going to give you guys drills that you can take and apply to those movements, so you can start working on them on your own. From there, we'll have like a quick Q&A. Any questions that you may have, feel free. Don't shy away. Ask the questions. Let them fly. I'll answer them. Give you guys feedback on what you need to do to actually get better with those dodges or whatever questions that you have. From there, we'll end the session with a couple action steps that you can take to help continue pushing your dodge. So for our 2 movements, we're going to have an explanation point. We're going to have actual demonstration. From there, we're going to have how it applies, and then we're going to go into how you're going to practice that. If you're able to, we want you guys to move into a space. If you don't have your stick with you right now, go grab your stick and get into a space. Like, all you need is like a 5x5 area. You don't need a lot of space. Just so you can kind of go through with us, right? So you're able to go through and actually walk through these dodges, walk through the drills so you completely understand what's going on. I'm going to obviously be teaching you guys the dodges, and I'll also have EK stepping on. So EK is going to step in. So EK, she's been one of our athletes who's been with us for a very long time. She's committed. She's going to Duke next year. She's a class of 24. Shout out to Weddington. She goes to Weddington High School, and she plays with M&D in Maryland. So she's going to jump in and help us demonstrate and give you guys the drills, actually what it looks like. And then from there, I'm going to be kind of coaching her up and telling you guys what I'm looking for within those movements. If you guys have any questions, feel free to contact Coach Brett, Coach Gribble. Drop your questions in the chat. And then from there, we'll relay them, I'll grab them, and then we'll answer those questions as we go. So like I said, this class is going to be less than an hour, and we want you guys to stay engaged, practice, as I said, within your 5x5 space, actually go through, practice the movements, have fun with it. That's the biggest thing, right? Like, that's the whole purpose that you play the game that you love, is to have fun first. And then from there, take everything that you're learning, grasp it, and then let's apply it. And like I said, I want this to go beyond just this Zoom conference or Zoom call. I want you guys to be able to lock in and apply this to like your everyday, make these kind of like micro habits, something that you can do day in and day out to continue building and getting better with your dodge, to become a better athlete. Got it? So first thing we're going to go into, we're going to talk about our principles, right? So our principles when we dodge, these are 3 things that we live by here at Dodge City. So our first thing that we go by, which is very heavy, is going to be our deception portion. So deception is just your ability to make it look like you're doing one thing and you're doing something else. So with that deception piece, we have 4 areas that we use for deception. We have our shoulder, our stick, our head, and our eyes. So those 4 things are going to be used to sell defenders, right? To make it look like, all right, if you want to sell like you're going to your left and you're really getting right, we believe like having those 4 areas, like now you have different depths of your deception, like you can have different depths of like how hard you sell, but we always start off, if you're new to this, new to Dodge City, anything that we're doing, we want you guys to kind of go overboard with the selling point of the 4. So you're really going to make sure you're snapping, you're selling head, shoulder, stick, eyes. And we're going to initiate that with our trigger step, which we're going to go through when EK gets out here, and we'll talk about the trigger step that initiates those 4 selling points within our deception principle. Our second principle is going to be aggressive feet, right? So anytime that we dodge, we always tell our athletes there's nothing cute about dodging. Everything's really violent with our feet. We're making sure we're applying force to the ground, and we're redirecting it as quick as we can, shifting our weight, getting in and out of our dodges. From there, our third principle is going to be change of pace, right? So change of pace is going to help you be a lot more effective within your dodging. So we always say, like, you don't have to be the fastest athlete or the quickest athlete to be successful in dodging, but you do have to understand how to change your gears very, very well and be able to change that pace very, very well. So being able to go 0 to 60, back up to 0 or down to 0, up to 60, just being able to range it and have different areas within your game of how you're changing that pace is going to make you that much more efficient in your dodging. So that's our 3 principles. If you guys are writing down the notes, I suggest you do, just so you don't forget this. So the first one again is going to be deception. Second one is going to be aggressive footwork. Third one is going to be change of pace. Those are our 3 principles that we live by here at Dodge City. From there, these are the things that you got to apply to every dodge that you do, right? So like certain dodges aren't going to have as much, and you'll see that today because we're going to go over the 2 dodges, which is going to be split dodge, a 2-step split dodge, and then we're going to go into a jump stop split dodge. So with those 2 splits, like, you can easily make these a face dodge. Like, if you prefer, all right, I'm fine with my splitting. I'm getting better with my stick handling, but at the same time, I prefer to face dodge. That's completely fine. Like, you can still make these exact same dodges and have these exact same principles applied, just making sure that now your stick is just in the opposite hand, right? So then, but you still have to sell your stick because that's one of our 4 areas of deception. So making sure that you have that applied is going to be really, really huge. So now I'm going to have EK. She's going to step back out, and we're going to walk through. So we'll back up a little bit. We're going to walk through our 2-step, right? So 2-step is something that you guys have been doing probably your whole career, playing the game that you love. That's basically all you're doing, is selling one way, right? And then I'm getting back the opposite way that I just sold. So when we're doing that, there's certain things that we look for within that. So when we're going into our 2-step, so EK is going to take that first step. So that first step that we take here, that's going to be your trigger step. Remember, so if we step back, go one more time for me, EK. So remember that trigger step that we said we had those 4 areas of deception. We said we had shoulder, stick, head, eyes. You have to know having it in sync is so important, right? Like, that's one of the biggest takeaways I want you guys to take away from the 2-step, is making sure that the synchrony is there. Meaning that when I pull the trigger with that step, that's when I have to sell those 4 areas. I can't be early, I can't be late. We always use the analogy of a trigger step being like a true trigger. Like, if somebody was to pull a trigger, we wouldn't expect a bullet to fire out 5 minutes later. But at the same time, we wouldn't expect for somebody not to touch a trigger and a bullet comes out. So that's the same thing. You want to have it in sync, just as a bullet would be in relationship to a gun. So you want to make sure that you're firing all 4 of those areas the time that trigger foot hits the ground. So go again for me, EK. So when she steps, boom, you notice she has her weight. She's weight loaded on that front leg, and then the back leg is slightly loaded. So from there, she wants all of her weight. We want it on our instep. So it's going to be the inside part of your foot, right? So when we dodge, we actually teach you guys getting flat, right? So get flat to dodge. So the analogy there, think of your feet being like pedals, right? So if my feet were pedals, if you're on the ball of your feet, that's gas, right? So if I'm flat, that's going to be more of like brakes. If you ever seen an athlete in an action shot and their heels striking first, that means they're hitting an emergency brake. That means they're going from a full speed run, and that could be like a heavy deceleration right now. We don't go over that one too often. It would just happen more naturally, but you do need to understand how to go from gas, being on the ball of your feet, to getting flat, to pumping those brakes, right? So just like a true dodge, or if you were in a car thinking of going around something, right? In a car wouldn't go full speed into a curb. You would actually dial it down, you would throttle it down. So that's why we allow our athletes to get flat, giving them more surface area to push off and explode out of the dodge. Now, when you're getting into your dodge and getting out of your dodge, those are 2 different things, right? So you have to be really efficient getting into that dodge, just like EK did. So take that first step, boom. Now from there, you have to so she's in it now really good. She has a shoulder, stick, head, eyes, everything is actually going to the right. So she's selling the defender to her right. Now, when she's getting out, she's going to drive with that right leg and push and lead with the left leg. That's what's going to help her really explode and get out of that dodge. So you don't want to get into your 2-step and you actually get into it and you're loaded up, but then you never utilize that loaded potential, you're never pushing off the drive out of it. You're actually leaving it loaded. And then what we'll see is some athletes actually cross over to get out of there. And that's not what we want, right? One is taking you longer to get out of there. Two is putting your body position in a bad situation to where like now you're no longer squared up to the defender. So only time we're not squared up to the defender is once we know we're clear to beat them, right? So anytime that you're not squared up to the defender and you actually working, you're getting your back towards the defender, or you're not squared, like I'm saying, the only way you can get backside is by rolling, which is fine if that's what you want to do, but don't allow a defender to actually make you roll if you don't want to roll, right? So you have to control the space, control the time within your dodges. So now I'm gonna have EK go through, acting as if she's in her 5x5 space, just like you are now. And then you want to go through and you're gonna work through just the full rep. So EK is gonna give us a full rep of what it looks like. And then she's out. There we go. Let's go one more time, E. Same thing. So you guys, I want you guys to practice, be going along, working with her right now. Here we go. Same thing. Push and go. There we go. See, so everything's snappy there with EK. She's getting into it very well, and she's getting out. I'm going to have her go through one more time. Really watch the deception point. She's not looking off. She's not selling with her 4 areas until that foot hits the ground. So go one more time for me, E. Push and go. There we go. So that's two-step split dodge. Like I said, you could face it as well. So if you face dodge, that means if you're going from right to left, it would be an actual left to left because you're going to have sticking your left hand. You would just sell right with sticking your left, and then you would push and get to your left. Or you can flip the same drill and go the opposite way. You can work left to right. So when do you apply this, right? So when am I actually going to apply a two-step, or what's the best opportunity for it, right? So I always say, like, you have to go by feel of the game. Always have a setup or approach going into your dodge, which we'll get into in our later sessions. But having an approach is really important. From there, know the defender. If you have a what I call a greedy defender, right? So a defender that's not playing discipline with their eyes. So eye discipline is really important when you're playing defense. For any of my middies or defenders that are watching this, it's extremely important to, like, where your eyes should be. Everybody knows you should be looking at the hips when you're playing defense, but you do get these greedy defenders where they have eyes up and they're actually looking at your eyes. So if you get one of those defenders, that's kind of where the switch kind of goes off, and then you just want to kind of lure her or him into it. So from there, just making sure that you're selling big time, heavy sell, and then from there, you're going to push and get out of it. Like I said, if you time it, the synchrony is so important, because if you time it, you will have the defender shift. And literally anytime that we dodge, whether it's a two-step, jump stop, anything that we're working on, we don't have to have that defender to actually be like an ESPN top 10 falling off of the screen in order for it to be a successful dodge. We literally just need a defender to be in a ready position and for him or her to shift the opposite way slightly, right? Because now that shift automatically changes the games, and now we're playing a game of angles. So that's what we want. We're trying to make this a game of angles, and we're trying to outrun mesh points. So defenders are trying to create mesh points, and we're trying to actually outrun them. So that's the perfect time. So you get a greedy defender, that's the perfect time to throw a really successful two-step split dodge or face dodge. A drill to practice on that. So I like doing this jab series or like pretty much like a trigger step series to where you're working on the synchrony. So what I'm gonna have EK do, this is one that you want to make sure you're taking in right here, make sure you're doing as well. So she's gonna start off, she's gonna jab, and as she's jabbing, she's looking off, right? So she's taking her 4 areas and she's selling as she feels it. So she'll go like 3 reps. So go ahead and go 3 reps for me, EK. 1, 2, 3, and then she will push and go into that next step. You got it? So what are you focused on there? You're focused on your weight. As I'm going into this drill at home, I'm focused on, as I'm selling, okay, 1, when my foot hits the ground, am I being deceptive within it, right? Am I really looking off? Am I looking early? Am I looking too late? Really feel that out to make sure that you're hitting it in stride. Then from there, on that last one, you want to be able to load the weight and then shift the weight to get out of that dodge. So what you want to make sure as you're doing these things or errors that you want to look for is making sure that you're not being a leaner, right? So what is a leaner? That means that I'm standing here and I'm jabbing right. And I did this very well for the first 2 reps. And then on my last rep, because I know I'm actually getting out on that rep, I actually don't even shift my weight that way. I'm kind of leaning into the new direction that I'm going, and then I'm getting out. That's what we don't want. So I would recommend, if you're going to do this one at home, set up a camera, watch your deception, right? Making sure that everything's in sync, and then also checking to make sure that your weight that you're loading, showing weight that way, right? and then I'm pushing and getting the opposite way, because that weight is so important just from a standpoint of like, if I'm standing here, if I'm jabbing straight ahead, right, like my body weight stays within my frame, but anytime that I jab outside of my frame, that automatically shifts my weight, and it makes it that much more believable on top of the synchrony of our deception to make it seem like you're really going that opposite way, right? So you're really selling. So making sure I'm having that weight loaded, and then I'm driving and I'm pushing off with that leg. Before I go into our jump stops, do we have any questions? So I'll actually go ahead and cover some questions right now. Do you guys have any questions as far as your two-step goes from a two-step dodge perspective? Any questions? Yep, drop it in the chat. If you got a question, feel free to drop it in the chat. Hold a couple more seconds. Good stuff. Thanks. You're welcome. I'm glad you're enjoying it. So just heating up a little bit. So that's the first one, two-step. Biggest thing I want, I mean, you can drop this in the chat if you want to, is this understandable for everyone? Like, is this making sense? I don't want to make sure, I don't want to be talking way different type of language and you're like, bro, what are you talking about? I have no clue what you're talking about. Want everything to be very comprehensive, making sure that you're able to grab it right now. Like I said, the objective for today is making sure that you can take these dodges, the things that we're talking about, and apply it to your game and your regular routine right out the gate. All right. So let's go into it. Oh, no, a slight pause right before she took the trigger step. Yeah. So if you're talking about almost like a stutter step. So yeah, so like if you're talking about the demonstration drill that she was doing, there is a slight pause going into it, right? So she's gonna jab one, she's gonna come back, reset two, and then as she's going into the jab, if she's going into the actual drill, you may notice it seems like a pause, but that is just so each athlete has a certain way that they play, right? So EK is very explosive. She's a super explosive girl. So anytime that EK can get an athlete to freeze, which is going to kind of take us into our next one, which is going to be our jump stop. Anytime that EK can get an athlete to match her pace of as far as dialing it down and then explode out, her first step is going to beat the other player's first step 9 out of 10 times. So if you're talking about the freeze actually within her dodge descript or her demonstration, that's what you're seeing. If you're talking about the pause in between the synchrony drill, that's what we want from everybody, right? To be able to freeze, boom, jab. So you're kind of getting that mental reset, and then so it's really three jabs, but you're treating it almost as like three separate drills. So like that's rep one, I reset, and then I go back into rep two, and then rep three, and then I get into it. There we go. Perfect. All right, so now we're going to go into our jump stop. So jump stop is basically a dodge that we utilize when you want to get even. So you're going to get your feet even, and I call it like a read and play, right? So you're going to read the defender, see how they react to you slowing up, and then explode out, right? So EK, if you stand for me up, so she's going to stand staggered. So from here, when you go jump stop, you're literally jumping. It's going to be a little minor pop, and you're getting your feet even. So go one more time for me, E. So you're gonna get here, you're gonna pop, feet even, boom. And then from there, you're gonna explode with the back leg. EK is going to her left, so she's gonna drive and explode with her right leg. So we use the analogy, anytime that you're going, whichever way that you go, you're going left or right, that back leg or the opposite leg is gonna serve as the engine leg, right? So we use the analogy saying if most fast cars, right? When you think of super duper fast cars, Lamborghinis, Ferraris, all those things. If you follow us on Instagram, you've seen this one before. We posted this one. We said those engines are located in the back. So super fast cars are most of the time engines are located in the back. So that's the same mindset you want to have when you're driving out of your Dodge. So if I'm here, if I'm going jump stop and I get my feet even and I know I'm going to my left, I want to be sure that I'm driving and putting force into the ground with that back leg and almost steering with that front leg. So point that toe to the direction that you want to go on that front side. So EK, if you can go one more time on the walkthrough for it. So you're here, she's just gonna pop her feet, get even, boom, and then from there she's gonna push and drive out. So when she's doing this one, this is one of our dodges that we put under the no deception zone. So this is the one dodge that has a deception. So we have our three principles when it comes to dodging, but the jump stop actually breaks principle number one because we're not selling. We don't need to sell. We're actually depending heavy upon our change of pace here. So our change of pace and our aggressive footwork has to be there once we land off of our jump stop. So when the feet are even, once I get even, I'm looking at the defender, and then from there, I'm taking off right away. And I always say, like, think of punching your shoulder through any dodge. When you're exiting out of that dodge, think of punching that shoulder through. That's just going to get you in a ready to shoot position a lot faster, and you're not going to have to travel and take extra steps going into it. So, EK, can you give us one live rep? So, EK's going to give us a live rep, run into it, push, and finish out. Good. Let's go. One more. Push, finish. There we go. Good. Perfect. So, like I said, the jump stops, when we're doing that, notice she wasn't having the deception, as we said before. She's really just pushing, driving, getting out. Our focal point here is our back leg. So the at-home drill for this one, you're going to want to get your feet even. Yep, so feet will be even. And then from there, you're going to load, and you're going to push, and you're going to jump onto the one leg, jump out. Good, there we go. So actually, we'll start staggered. So let's start staggered. You're going to pop, get even, boom, and then jump and finish. You got it? So you're focusing on jumping off that back leg, landing on the front leg. So lateral bounds help tremendously when it comes to being laterally more explosive, just being a jump motion, although you're not going to jump in games. But having that lateral push off, being able to jump and then also control and stabilize that front leg is going to be really just, that almost serves as like an injury prevention standpoint too, because you're going to have to stabilize that front leg. You want to stick that landing as EK was doing, so that you're just working those small stabilizer muscles and then being able to stabilize your weight whenever you're changing direction. So this can apply within your dodging or just within the game of lacrosse, because it is a heavy change of direction sport outside of dodging as well. So that's a really good one to do just from an injury standpoint to injury prevention standpoint, is just being able to pop, get your feet even, and then from there, drive with the back leg. Don't try to jump off both legs, or it's going to feel a little weird. Just be able to jump off and push and land on that front leg, have the leg slightly bend it, and then from there, hold it for 2 seconds, 2 to 3 seconds, and then walk back and then reset and go again. The best time to apply a jump stop is when you've been kind of winning off of deception a lot, maybe. Like I said, these are two dodges, by the way, that you're going to fall into the category you feel better doing one than the other. So for some of y'all, you're going to feel more natural going into the jump stop. Like you actually did the jump stop. You're like, you know what? That was great, Ro. I love that one. That one feels really good. And then you go into a two-step and you may be struggling with your deception, like having it timed up. But you want to be able to work both, but you're going to naturally just fall into one of those categories. And then from there, within our later sessions, we'll teach you guys how to build off of those. So these are just kind of like the intro side of these drills, and you'll be able to build off of these. There are combos you can do coming off of these. And at the end of the day, we want to get you guys to a read and react and play. We always say play defense on offense, meaning like after you have your initial dodge, from there, we want to teach you guys how to play ball and read better than the defender reads. So defense is built off of read and react, but really elite offensive players within the game of lacrosse, they have the ability to read and react better than the defenders. So we want to get you to that point as well with these combinations that we'll work and build into. But that jump stop, as I said before, like as you're going into it, you're going to naturally fill it out. Like you'll fill out which one's better. But this is one that if you've been beating a girl all day or a guy, you've been beating them all day with heavy deception, now you come down, because that slight jump is going to serve as a change of gear, change of pace that we talked about. So when you jump, defender kind of sees slow, but as you jump, once you land, you have to go right away. You got to drive and get out of there right away. So the height of your jump just depends on the athlete. Some athletes go into jump stops and they're very low. They're low to the ground. It's really a quick pop, and then they drive and get out. Some athletes go into it, they get more of a higher jump, which just serves as like a slower, like a longer slow-mo moment. And then when they land, either way it goes, you have to get out of there once you land. So that's the optimal time to actually apply that jump stop. And then we already gave you guys the drill that you would do from at home. Do you guys have any questions in regards to jump stop dodges? Any questions? Feel free. Like we said before, just type it in chat. Try and give you guys time to type up if you got something. Are you decelerating? Great question. Are you decelerating into that jump? So can you stutter before the dodge? 100%. So those are, like we said before, stutter. So that's a whole nother session for us, is just going into the type of approaches that you can have. You can have a stutter. We have a jet approach. We call it jet approach, which is just pretty much a straight line sprint into a dodge. Really effective for like middies. Um, Stutter skips. We got our skips as well. You have your arc. So we have our arc approaches. So it's different approaches to get to your dodge. 100%. We're just giving you that actual base of getting like in that dodge, like for that dodge. Absolutely. We'll demo again, by the way. But decelerating going into the dodge, yes, you do have to have some type of deceleration. So notice when EK, we were staggering. So when she staggers her feet from here, it doesn't matter which foot you have forward, by the way. This staggered stance just simulates as if you're running downfield. So I would actually recommend, as you're doing this drill, just so you don't get caught feeling great, only right leg up, you can switch sometimes, right? So if you're doing jump stops, you can switch it up. All right, let me lead with the left foot. Let me lead with the right foot. Because actually, the moment that you get caught for your jump stop, there's no telling what position, like which leg may be coming forward when you decide to have that spacing to throw that dodge, because we never want to throw our dodges too close to the defender, because we always want to make sure that we're dodging, we're working downhill, never like east to west. So the actual decel is going to come from the actual landing of the jump stop. So as you're running, you can run full speed, but that's why it's really key, as we said before, when you land getting flat, that's going to serve as like your brake, and then you're going to have a slight bend in your knees, right? So you're absorbing the force from there, and then you're going to redirect right away with that back leg. So there is going to be a slight deceleration as you come down, just making sure that your feet get flat. And like I said, you want to feel that weight to your insteps. Instep is just literally like the inside part of your foot. That's what's going to give you the most optimal opportunity to push and be explosive out of that dodge. So when you get here, jump stops are really good too, by the way, because when you get here, read and play, when you jump stop, if you determine like, hey, I want to go right, but the defender seems to shade more to your right, and you can still have the opportunity to get left right away because you have such an even stance, and especially if you get proper deceleration when you land off of it. Got it? So we'll get EK to go back into the demonstration of jump stop again. So you can go into a full one. Yep. So we'll go full so they can see it. Push and go. Good. Here we go. Give me another one, EK. Good. There we go. So next question was how far? Yeah. How close would you recommend doing the dodge in front of a defender? You don't want to be on top of them, about 3 to 4 feet away. So that depends on the type of defender, right? So I always say the spacing, it's hard to give an actual numerical value behind it, like actual feet, like how far you need to be. So like if I'm standing, EK, let's turn and face this way. So yep. So EK is a faster athlete. So if I was throwing a dodge on EK, I do want to wait a little longer to get into my dodge. Not enough space to where she can actually get stick on me, but the closer that I can get to a faster defender, the less opportunity is going to give her to create an angle to cut me off, if that makes sense. So like if I'm coming down the EK, and you will feel this out, your athlete or yourself, you will be able to fill this out game time situation. Like as I'm pushing into a defender, like ideally this is the range. So if I had to mark it off, just walking it off, 1, 2, 3, 4, so like 5 steps away. But at the same time, as I said, like if it's a faster defender, close the space even more. Because if I try to dodge, like if you're further back, a slower defender, you can get away with being further back, right? If I make a dodge and I go here, she may not be fast enough, or he may not be fast enough, or understand angles well enough to actually cut me off. So therefore, if I'm dodging against somebody's faster, I want to close the space a little more. So I got to go ahead and prepare for the contact somewhat, because I want to be able to skim off and go right off of their foot. So they're unable to create that angle right away. So if she wanted to cut me off, EK would have to turn, flip her hips, and actually run to go cut me off if I was doing that. So the spacing just depends upon the type of defender that you're going against. The safe boundary, I guess you can say the safe space, would be maybe 5 to 6 steps away for like just average. If your athlete is struggling, or you're struggling with your dodges, and you need to, and like you're trying to figure out like, okay, this guy or girl, they keep I'm struggling getting by, then you may have to close that space a little more. Make sure that your deception's there if you're going into a two step, and then make sure that when you're landing off of that jump stop, if those are two of the dodges that you're throwing, make sure you're being really explosive and driving off of that back leg as you're going into it. Good. Um, what else? Any more questions? That was a great question, by the way, though. Great question. Great question. All right. So questions are answered. So we have our drills, our takeaways. Um, I would say the emphasis just starting back off our two step. If we're going with our two step, synchrony is the most important. Making sure that your step, your trigger step, which is what we call that jab step, which is always the last jab step before leaving your dodge, making sure that that's heavy in sync with your deception, right? So synchrony is really important. That's the one biggest takeaway I would say for our two step. Going into our jump step, the biggest takeaway is going to be driving off of your back leg. A lot of athletes tend to forget to drive off the back leg and they don't feel as explosive going into a two step because at the end of the day, you do have to get lateral to blow by your defender. So you got to be able to explode and get in and out of your dodges. So that's really important. That's the takeaway for your jump stop. Jump stop is being really explosive with your back leg. Two step, make sure that the synchrony is on point with your deception. After this, I want to make sure that you will get an email about how you felt about this session. First off, thank everybody for jumping on, taking time out of your Sunday evening to come on and just see what we were talking about. Hopefully this was super beneficial. Those two drills that we went over, hopefully you're able to go through, utilize this, help your game, help your athletes. If you're a coach, trainer tuning in, these are things that they can do. I would incorporate those actual walkthrough or the drills that we incorporated, maybe add in that as an extended portion of your warm up. But athletes, if you're watching, incorporate these anytime you go out to shoot, or anything that you're doing from a lacrosse standpoint. If you have the opportunity to dodge going into it, let's add that in, right? And focus on those things, those takeaways that we just talked about. Question again. What foot should be your back leg? 2 Chainz. Oh, 2 Chainz. What's up, girl? So your back leg is just going to be your opposite leg of the way that you're going. So if you're going to the right, then my engine leg is going to be my left leg. That's what's going to help get me there. And I'm kind of steering with my front leg. So think of your front legs being like a steering wheel, and then your back leg is being your engine leg. So wherever you point that toe at, that's going to be that's the way that you're firing to go. So if you're dodging more flat, which we don't want, but if you catch yourself dodging, you're working more flat, 9 times out of 10, you're taking that step too outward and then you're following behind and now you're not getting downhill as you need to. And yeah, you guys can fire while we're at it. Now you can go, if you got any other just general questions related within the game or whatever you may have just about Dodge City, anything you have, feel free to let those questions fly as well. As I'm talking through the finishing up of the dodges. So we got our two. We went through them. We went through our principles. Quick takeaway on the principles. You have your deception, your aggressive feet, aggressive footwork, and you have your change of pace, change of gears. Once again, thank you. I'm not gonna tie up any more of your time. Like I said, if you have any more questions, feel free to DM us on Instagram or send us an email at info@dodgecitylax.com. And that's it. Appreciate it. See you guys later. Coach Rowe logging out.